that's what I told him. We're like, kind of a good routine. I said, if you can do it, do it. He's like, I got it. I was like,
Really? It was particularly challenging. Friday was nice.
well, that's why for me, well, I was going to say, that's why I asked you to send me the notes. I figured if you couldn't do it, I would do it, but he says he got it out. He got it.
Nothing else?
Oh, they're starting to. Oh, guys.
Working hard tonight, yeah, make sure.
Hi.
I don't see you much now, Elizabeth, you're so far away. You know?
It's bad. Yeah, boxes. So if you go to a restaurant, you get boxes. It's very good. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That I know of. I mean, he can't sit on the Middleton one, but he can sit on the first one. No, they're customers. Okay, well, this is not good. What you're not
Circling in what I found out. Was a bounce back, or not even a bounce back. It was like a disappearing ego. So now I have to recreate every single bill that I did because they had to wipe my program, wipe my computer, and reinstall it. So I have to redo them all. Everything. I'm like,
I didn't say yes, William.
oh, thank you. Did you? I did. Okay.
Yeah, I sent you an email if you need me to resend it.
So I started doing a,
from the beginning.
I started doing a Word document.
Yeah.
One of what I was showing you. I was having so many information this week, and I'm so devastated with it. And I don't even know how the virus, and I'm trying to virus off the firewall. I have no idea how to and it's I disgusting. I had to do all bills for Neptune just to get the handwritten numbers. So now I have to read really, I'm so disgusted. So I'm finally interviewing someone. Thank you. To come in. So I'm hoping that this will be the sixth version. See the sixth version. Nobody wants to work if you know anybody.
You don't pay the maintenance.
No, I'm like, come in when you want. I'll pay you money. Only you want $25 an hour. I was just so proud of paying. But she didn't know Word, she didn't know Dropbox, and she barely knew what well, so my son's girlfriend is an international student, so they're going to Morocco for 2 weeks. He and his girlfriend are going back into her house. get one, you'll be in my office answering telephones, because otherwise you'll be living with me. Yeah, correct. So that's just, that's my life. All right, so this is not it.
Lance isn't coming, right?
We don't know.
I don't think he is supposed to be coming. Well, he has a conflict on.
Good.
I know, I said that's not going to be fine. Yeah.
I gathered we're on a cruise. To where?
We went to the Bahamas and Puerto
Dave, you're up.
David, you look to see the thing.
Nice to go on and you
Bring your-
here and that didn't work. You know? You pay for it when you get home.
Do you like my little tape that I do every time?
So.
Okay, I'm gonna go get ready.
Bringing up Snyder asked me for sidewalk. So we have been bringing up a lot of our approvals where we found it was setbacks. We brought it up so many times. Is that automatically in our resolutions? Yeah. Or should we bring it up with each application?
Well, typically, because I don't know, typically the other if you want to do that as
A lot of times.
if you want to do it as stands in the resolution, before I can get it in.
It should be, Dave usually brings it up.
Yeah, we usually bring it up. And have it
Keep in mind, we basically follow the
Ready?
engineer's letter as well. So,
sometimes it's not.
We'll call this meeting to order. Can we all stand and join in the salute to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. The Borough of Seabright, in compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act, provided adequate notice of the time, date, and location of this meeting to the Asbury Park Press, the Link News, on January 13, 2022. Filed notice with the Borough Clerk and posted notice on the Borough office and on the Borough website. This meeting is open to the public. We have a roll call.
Okay. Councilman Bieber? Ms. Bills? Mr. Cashmore?
Here.
Chairman Cunningham? Vice Chairman DeSayo?
Yes?
Ms. Gorman? Yes. Mayor Kelly? Mr. Lawrence?
Here.
Mr. Lexstein?
Here.
Mr. Schwartz? Mr. Julio?
Okay, first on the agenda, do we have any discussion about the meetings or a motion to approve them?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second? We have a roll call.
Okay. Mr. Cashmore?
Yes.
Vice Chairman DeSayo?
Yes.
Ms. Gorman? Yes. Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Mr. Julio?
I wasn't here. I think I was. I think I'm eligible also. You were too. You don't like me down there.
This is the minutes of 3/8.
This is because you didn't sit on both applications.
3-8?
Yeah.
Why did I sit on both applications? I was here.
You were?
Yeah. Yes, I think it was here.
Mr. Lexstein?
We'll accept this.
I say yes.
We're all on the edge of our chairs.
Were you or weren't you?
That was the last meeting, right? Yeah, I was not here for both.
Yes.
Okay, next,
Yeah, I was.
Okay, he was here for both. I wasn't here, so I couldn't say.
next item on business is the memorialization of the resolution for Greg Lewis. I think that was the shed out in the yard.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Anybody want to make a motion
Make a
to?
motion to approve. I'll second.
We have a roll call.
Mr. Cashmore?
Yes.
Vice Chairman DeSayo?
Yes.
Ms. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Mr. Julio?
Yes.
Mr. Lexstein?
Now,
were you on that?
that's the one I could not vote for. That's from February.
We want your approval.
I trust him. I really did.
Next item of business is the memorialization and of resolution for Armin Khatchatorian.
I'll make a motion to approve that resolution.
I'll second.
Okay.
And the roll call.
All right, Mr. Cashmore.
Yes.
Vice Chairman DeSeo.
Yes.
Ms. Gorman.
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence.
Yes.
Mr. Lexstein.
Yes.
Ms. DeJulia.
Yes.
Okay, we have one more memorialization of the resolution for Christopher Palladino.
I'll make a motion to approve that resolution.
I'll second.
Okay. We have Vice Chairman DeSeo.
Yes.
Ms. Gorman.
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence.
Yes.
Mr. Lexstein.
Yes.
Ms. DeJulia.
Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda is a new application of Ruth Fialco, 58 Ocean Avenue. And it looks like they're represented by Mr. Brodsky.
And for purposes of the record, please note that we have reviewed the notice. The notice is appropriate and the board can accept jurisdiction of this matter.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Brent Brodsky on behalf of the applicant, Ruth Fialco. As the chairman indicated, the property that forms the subject matter of the application is located at 158 Ocean Avenue. It's a single-family residential home in your R2 zone. The application seeks approvals for variance relief associated with demolishing the existing home and building a new home. The existing home is an older home, I think built in the 40s, suffered some fairly significant damage during Sandy. The owner applicant, Ruth Fialco, has owned the property since 2004. So the property is a corner lot, right? It's on the corner of Ocean, and it actually is deficient not in lot size, but in lot width. It's a 40-foot wide lot. And so, as well as being a corner. So while the application proposes to hold the required front setback off of Ocean, off of Mountain View, it's actually looking to hold the 8-foot setback. That's the normal side setback in the zone. It's actually going to, the existing home is a bit closer to Mountain View than 8 feet. The newly proposed home proposes that setback, which is the architectural side of the home, of 8 feet. Obviously, it's going to comply with the flood regs, and so, in addition to that, in addition to the lot width variance and the front setback variance, because technically it's a front yard because it's a corner lot. So we do need that variance, and also the height, whereas 33 feet is permitted, we're at 34.92, which is about 34 feet 11 inches. The architect will address that. Obviously, there has been a lot of development sort of all around this house, and there are some approvals for some additional, and this one is kind of last one in. So, and these, right now it kind of sticks out a bit, but and the applicant is excited to build a new house. Take advantage of the view a little bit of the ocean, and it's going to be for her own use. She splits her time between here and half the year here, half the year in Florida. So, unless the board has any questions, what I'd like to do is have our architect step forward and be sworn. Ms. Fialco is here as well, and should we test? I don't know if you want to, Monica, if you want to swear both in?
Yeah, we'll swear them
Stay there for now.
Are you ready to find us too or no?
Oh, yeah, should be sworn? Yes. same.
Will you please raise your right hand? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth for purposes of this application? Can you just please state your name and your address, professional address for you, for the record?
Salary total number one, I have to spell it.
Please.
L-A, capital F as in Frank, E-R-L-I-T-A, 115 University Drive, Lincroft, New Jersey.
Thank you.
And Ruth Fiacco, 158 Ocean Avenue, Seabright, New Jersey, 07776.
Thank you, Siaka. And sir, can you just state your professional credentials for acceptance by the chair, please?
Yes, I'm a registered architect here in New Jersey and in New York. I've been licensed since 1995. Been practicing residential architecture for over 30 years in New York and New Jersey, as well as commercial architecture.
If anybody doesn't have any objection, we'll accept your credentials.
Great, thank you, thank you. All right, Sal, let's,
Right. So basically, everyone has a plan in front of them, and one of the things to, I have one on the board mounted. Do I need to bring that up? Or?
We have, I think
You have it?
But you use such big paper, it's hard to work with.
It can be reduced.
all right, so Sal, if you would, just, now,
The public can't see the plan, should they put the board up?
I could.
yeah, that might be a,
Public for the public.
If we have a board, sir. Do we have these available now?
In there then? Walk you through it?
Sure.
Right, so basically,
so, Sal, this is what you're referring to, is an exact copy of what has been submitted to the board?
it's the exact copy that's been submitted to the board. There's a couple of red numbers on here that are just for me because I have very little memory anymore, so that's how I came to my calculation, my address, and it goes on. But these are the exact same plans that were submitted to the board.
So we're just going to note for the record that all of these items have been provided as exhibits. They are listed on the website, so they are appropriate. However, as you're going through them, can you just refer to the page number for it?
Sure.
Okay?
All right.
Okay, thank you.
You ready?
Yeah.
So basically, this is the first plan. It's titled Proposed Addition. Floor plans, it's A100. And as Mr. Brodsky explained, this Gapco had this one-story home on this property. It was severely damaged during Sandy. A few years ago, we did make some plans to raise the house and possibly add an addition on top of the existing one-story after raising it, and the numbers just didn't make sense at the time. So she decided, and I agreed that it might be worthwhile to just raise. Different spelling.
Raised meaning not
Great.
that.
Demolish. How do you demolish?
Demolished.
Better understanding how that works.
Build a new 2.5-story home with the proper flood elevations and all of her wish list that she wouldn't have been able to get by reusing the existing home. So basically, it's a first story on the ground level. We're trying to get a 2-car garage and the entry into the home, Wolf Mountain Way, leading to a staircase and an elevator. And this is considered an upside-down reverse home. So the second floor is actually the bedroom area, and then the third floor is the living space with the kitchen and dining area leading out to some decks. We are proposing an elevator so that guests and groceries can get up to the kitchen a little bit easier. There is an attic as well that leads out to a balcony in the front, taking advantage of the ocean view along Ocean Avenue, and actually a half a balcony off the rear, which actually could look at the river and I guess the considered mountain view, right? Full mountain view play. So we're trying to take advantage of all the views. with this concept. Any questions?
And so I just showed the board there, you've got the survey sort of slash site plan on there and just giving the board orientation, I'm sure they're familiar with it, but we've got that 40-foot width on Ocean, right? So that's kind of one of
The
the,
property's only 40 feet wide.
Right.
But it is 140 feet deep.
Yeah.
So where it doesn't meet the credentials for the width of the property to this zone, it's bigger than what's required square footage wise. So this is a 5,600 square feet, and I believe only 4,000 is required for this zone. So we meet the square footage, we just don't meet the width. It's supposed to be a 50-foot width according to the zone, but this is pre-existing, and if we keep the setbacks on a 40-foot wide lot, we basically left with a trailer. I mean, you basically have 10 feet left to build a home.
and so we hold the 25 feet off of Ocean Avenue, which is required.
25-foot 9 off of Ocean Avenue. Originally it was 40 feet, so we're bringing it a little bit forward. And we're maintaining 8 feet on the Mountain View Way and 7 feet on the rear side of the property.
So the 8 feet that's proposed along Mountain View Way, which complies with the side setback in the zone, but technically requires a variance, right? Because we technically have 2 front yards because it's a corner lot.
That's correct.
Which would require a 25-foot setback off of Mountain View as well, which, like you said, would leave us with really
A sliver
a
of
little train car kind of thing.
Mhm.
Okay. And then, so we've got the lot width, we've got the setback issue, and then the last variance that we need pertains to, oh wait, before we go to that, on your top level there, what did you have? I don't know if you talked about.
This up here?
Yeah.
So this is the attic space above the living area, continuing up this there, and basically it's a semi-finished attic that leads to the front balcony and a rear balcony to capture these views.
So that qualifies as a half-story then?
Yes.
Yeah, so
It meets the 1/3 rule of the floor level.
And then, okay, Sal, let's go to the elevation.
Could I ask you one question? I don't know, it's probably more of a legal question, I don't know. When we were reviewing the application from the project in Mountain View back there, I know the engineer came up with the fact that on Mountain View, there's a right-of-way widening line, which we had designated sidewalks behind, and obviously it can't follow through to the front, but is there something do they have to get a variance for that?
Or they have to build a sidewalk?
Wasn't it? On that street, since it's a narrow street, I think it had a widening line to it.
I don't
Remember that?
I don't
We did
remember.
talk about it, I don't know what extent it to the front, but it's not shown on the survey.
Well, the survey utilizes 2004, so he's just doing an overlay from the 2004 survey.
That's correct.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, but
I have no objection to what you're proposing here, but I didn't know if that has to be on the record, that we're going to give them relief not to.
You mean to not require the construction of sidewalk?
Right, and up to the widening line.
Yeah. I don't know if it's variance relief, but certainly, yeah, we would request a waiver from any requirement for the construction of sidewalk. But I don't know if it's a requirement here.
do you remember, I know there was a discussion that the town, we talked about widening the street at one time, but they,
Remember Dave had us run the sidewalks up to the back of their property on that new development
Yeah, the
behind?
sidewalks are gonna be on the property of the new Mountain View Villas.
Within the
but we
widening
couldn't
line.
you couldn't go
state
extend it
anything
up to
for
the
her
corner,
property.
up to Ocean Avenue,
Right.
because they weren't allowed
They
to
didn't
do it
own
on
it.
this property.
Right,
Yeah,
On both sides of the street?
yeah.
yeah. So there was no point widening the road or adding sidewalks, because it wouldn't continue to Ocean Avenue.
So did we make them do sidewalks or not?
The houses behind we did.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
Because they're all
But
with
they
the one
couldn't
developer.
continue forward because of
They
the
didn't know
existence of this house.
Exactly.
But when we come down to demolishing a house, we're supposed to follow the new rules and regulations and setbacks.
Well, I think the game plan, I mean, I don't remember, but I'm sure you guys are right, and I'm sure the plan was that when this house went, they'd want sidewalks on this property
Yeah.
to extend to the
Because that would be
street.
consistent,
Right.
right? Otherwise, you come on to Mountain View and it's just.
Oh, you know what the issue was, now that you're saying, I remember, because a lot of people come up there and they do the U-turn
Yes.
around.
Yeah, we
and
had
they
the
use
T
my-
and the
yes. Yeah.
Remember?
You mean on that?
On Mountain View, a lot of people make turns where they realize they can't
Go to
do it
San
anywhere else.
Yeah.
And they do U-turns, right? Just come off the bridge this way and then, and they can make a U-turn, because they have a trap on the bridge.
Right.
And yeah, there was a lot of discussion about that
Yeah.
in the old one. So you probably should put the sidewalk in.
Yeah.
On our
Can
property.
they put them on the inputs, in the input setback or no?
Well,
It's,
Yeah, they can
One
put
of
it
the
in.
contiguous with the other sidewalk, whatever
Yeah.
that is.
They were thinking that possibly their next door neighbor might buy the lots together, then they'd have to accommodate the widening line.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, if this is going to be approved, do we have to have something in writing or something on the record that you're
No, they should have to connect their sidewalk with, I mean, I remember now that you're bringing it up,
Yeah.
but they should have to connect their sidewalk with the sidewalk, the property right directly behind it.
right.
but it wouldn't have space to do it. That was the problem, I think.
Well, no, they couldn't put it on this property because they didn't own this property.
Well, my question is, that's why I was bringing up the survey, is if the town doesn't have a right of way on this property, then you can't enforce the sidewalks.
Well, we should ask.
You're asking for a right of way, because that's what I'm saying, the right of way would be shown on the 2004 survey if it existed. So you're saying that we asked, in the other applicant, we asked for the right of way.
Yeah, I'm sure we did.
To include the sidewalks.
Right.
So you would have to ask for the right of way to continue that sidewalk up to the corner of Ocean.
Right, and I'm sure that's what Dave was doing when he recommended it,
Right. Now,
which was here.
now, a right of way though would be what?
A widening line.
For an easement? I mean, not.
No, it's an undersized street width.
It would,
No, I understand.
It would just be a continuation of the sidewalk from
Understood.
the other approved application up to the Ocean Avenue sidewalk.
You can work
You
it
don't
out.
lose any of the properties, because instead of landscaping or asphalt, you would have a walkway and an apron into the driveways.
You can talk to Dave Hoder afterwards, and
Okay.
he'll hook you up with the right specs.
Yeah, I mean, there were also poles, there were utility poles there as well, that would go, be right where the sidewalk would go.
I mean, if this sidewalk is going like that.
How about we, I don't know if the board's okay, but why don't we make it subject to Dave Hoder's review?
Okay. Section, this is Mountain View, sidewalk shall be installed if required by the planning board. When deemed necessary for safety, the applicant is apparently not proposing sidewalks on the site testimony should be provided. And I think during that conversation, they agreed to put in sidewalks.
What are you reading from the resolution?
No, this was, sorry, not a resolution.
That was Mountain View.
Dave's report.
It was Dave's report.
Oh, Dave's report.
For our meeting, yeah.
But those sidewalks were going to end at the rear of this application.
Right, because they didn't
Because they didn't have enough width.
own this property.
No, they couldn't go on her property because they didn't own
They didn't
her
own the
property.
property.
But if you look at these pictures,
Right.
there is a pole here. So the pole would be in the,
Yeah, they typically put the sidewalk around the pole, that's not unusual.
But that would be encroaching into the street.
Materials for December.
No, I think your discussion, your suggestion is probably the best, that we just have Dave Hoder involved in this.
That if he feels the sidewalk is appropriate, that it be added.
Yeah, to be consistent.
Well, can we ask Ruth's thoughts on what?
I mean, I just think if the property is narrow as it is and you're gonna have, car garages there, I don't think there's a lot of traffic on their street, a lot of pedestrian traffic. And even with the new houses coming up, I think one of my neighbors is here as well. I don't think there's a need for sidewalks. And I think right now I have a lot of landscaping that I spend a lot of money on. I have to destroy a lot of that. So I would rather not if I don't have to. I just think it's an odd thing on a narrow lot to have a sidewalk.
I think the issue, Ruth, is that coming in off Ocean Avenue, like you said, and there is a lot The observation at the time is that there was a lot of traffic going down that road making U-turns during the summer.
But there's not a lot of foot traffic, only people who live on the street.
But it was the foot
Is there
traffic of
public
the...
access? Public access?
It was a-
was there?
Yeah, there's public access at the end of the street.
Yeah.
Right, so people were supposed to have the ability to walk down a sidewalk rather than walking in the street. But I thought the conclusion was that it wasn't really going to be necessary because this lot was so narrow.
No, it was that we couldn't build on her lot because they didn't own her
Well, I think it
lot.
was a combination
Well,
of...
maybe, it wasn't even an issue because they couldn't build on her lot.
Right.
So just leave it to date, and I think that's...
Now, but I'm concerned though, because we were out there and looking, I mean, aren't there like 2 utility poles?
At least 2, if not 3,
There's 2.
very large telephone poles.
There's 2, right?
But we're not talking about moving the curb back, we're talking about just providing a
That's the
sidewalk.
problem with, they have to be within the setback, there's the poles. So this is coming around from Ocean.
No, I don't think it's necessary, I'm just saying that maybe it should be on the record.
No, I'm just showing you the video.
Yeah.
Have you seen the other application for homes that we built behind yours?
Yes,
On
I
Mountain
was
View?
at those hearings.
You were at those
I was at
hearings,
those hearings. And I know that they asked me for a sidewalk in. But those properties are twice as wide as mine, so I think there's room for a sidewalk and it's 80 feet wide. It's like 40 feet wide and I'm putting a 3-foot sidewalk.
Yeah, well, it's just a different surface.
Right.
The space is still there,
Yeah.
just a different surface.
They can put a sidewalk on the other side. On the road.
Well, we don't own the other side of the road. That's the whole problem.
If that applicant came in for variance, then that would be a conversation.
Yeah, I wish Dave was here to comment on this.
Well, if the sidewalk goes in, that's what, 3 feet? The sidewalk, the width of the sidewalk? 5. 4. 4?
4?
Should be 4 feet behind them. I'm the builder from Mountain View. We'll be 4 feet wide. It's Mr. Lexstein.
If you're gonna make a comment, you have to stand up and...
No comment yet, no comment yet.
Well, we'll try to help.
Thanks for the input. No comment.
We'll open it to the public after
Could we potentially do this? Could we leave it to Dave, have Dave review it in the interim and instruct Monica to come up with a positive resolution for the next meeting? And if Dave, and you can talk to Dave in the interim, the voter, and decide, and if he agrees there's no sidewalk is should be there, then fine. And that is not possible to do. But that doesn't delay you anything. And if he decides that you need a sidewalk, we'll incorporate it into the resolution.
We'll have to figure it out and figure out how to navigate those poles
And it might not be possible.
Right.
Does that work for everybody?
Yeah, sorry, this isn't fresh, it was December 8th, 2020, so we're a little.
Yeah, I just don't, I didn't remember.
I think it makes sense though, if those other homes that are being built have a sidewalk, if that sidewalk continued and attached to the Ocean Avenue side.
Right.
He might
To me, it just seems like it would make
What would
sense.
you do when you get to the pole? Go around it?
Well, you might be able to put a modified paver pathway in to make it look more of a landscaping element that people could actually utilize and come around the pole, yes.
Well,
Because that, it would be, it's a compromise.
Right.
Let's see what Dave has to say.
Sure.
Because there is public access to the river.
Yeah.
That was provided by that developer.
I think that was the big issue, is that the public will be going down there because it's public access.
Possibly.
Well, they're putting in a whole new development next door.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are two up already behind her.
Right.
Down. There are two more coming across the street, right?
The whole street's being renovated,
Right.
which is nice.
Yeah.
Right.
It's long overdue.
And the house across the street is being raised, but
Right. on the-
that's a little closer.
That was just approved on the other side of Mountain.
Right.
Yeah.
So Sal, if there is a requirement, if Dave Hoder comes up with a sidewalk requirement, you said there's a little additional right of way beyond our property line.
So there's a note on the original survey that it calls out edge of pavement, and if I was to scale that, that's approximately 2.5 to 3 feet to our property line. So if we maintain 8 feet to the property line, there's still another 2.5 to 3 feet, so it's really 11 feet.
So that might,
A 3 foot walk. What do you think? A 3 foot walk is?
no, it's red. There's part of the right of way that is not paved. Okay. Right? So there's about 2.5 feet within Mountain View Way, within that right of way, outside of our property line.
So there's no curb line?
There is a curb, but it's all grass to the curb. It's all grass.
And the curb exists 2.5 feet beyond our property.
That is correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So the sidewalk would be partially in that area and partially.
That's what I'm thinking.
But there's still two poles right in the middle of
Yes.
this.
Right.
It might very well not make sense to put
Yeah.
a sidewalk in there, but just let Dave take a look at it.
You got it.
But a 3-foot sidewalk would be, I think, sufficient.
Well, let's see what Dave says, and you can work
Maybe
something
that's
out.
another compromise, if it's only 3 feet. 3 feet.
So our approval would be
Well, what we would
based
do-
on Dave's review?
No, what we would do is we wouldn't vote yes tonight. We would direct Monica to draft a positive resolution. You would have your conversations with Dave Hoder, and then we come back to the next meeting and we would incorporate it. If you're okay with it, if you want to argue against it, you can come to the meeting and argue against it, and then we would approve the application at the next meeting.
Right.
Because we as a board might have to give relief on it if he's saying, yes, he wants it.
Right.
I understand. I understand.
So that way you don't lose any time.
Okay.
Assuming we approve the application.
Assuming it's approved.
Yeah.
All right, let's go through the elevations real
All
quick.
right, so basically, we walk through the floor plans and this is really
This is sheet 8101.
what it's going to look like. We're looking at the drawing for exterior elevations, title sheet number A101. Top right corner is what it would look like, front elevation over Ocean Avenue. This is the side elevation that we're talking about that has the garage doors and this 8-foot setback to the driveway to the sidewalk. So this is the predominant elevation of this house, pretty much, on Mountain View, even though the front of it is on Ocean. The opposite side is the type setback, which is simply, basic minimal window administration of everything. And then the rear, which is facing this Mountain View and the river, also has a attic deck and 2 small decks off the living area as well as the bedroom area. We do have an additional carport underneath one of the decks.
So you have room for 3 cars?
Well, we actually have, if I went back, or if it's easier for you to look at the site plan, we actually have a detached garage on this property and some significant amount of travel space. So you can actually park 3 cars.
So that detached garage is going to stay then?
It's existing, it's actually been reconstructed. Yes, it's going to stay, it's on the site plan.
But
You
it
have a
says,
garage and a carport.
It's a single car garage, really, I think maybe you can get a small compact car in it.
Yeah, I use it for
Storage, pretty much.
Yeah.
but that would be considered an
You have a
accessory.
carport next to it.
The carport is part of that garage. It's just a roof overhang. The carport I'm suggesting is going to be under the new house, under the rear deck.
So you have, I'm seeing 2.
On the original, I'm sorry, on the original
Two-car
survey,
And parking.
there was a carport over the garage. That part of the roof collapsed during Sandy and I didn't rebuild it. So there is no carport on the garage, which is like a little
Overhang.
All
overhang.
right, so theoretically, you could have 4 cars on there, park on the property, is what you're showing.
Yeah.
And you have two off-street.
Right. And then she's got the lot of the house.
The lot across the street too.
Lot across the course, so.
But if that's going to remain as an accessory building, it doesn't meet the setbacks for it.
But it's existing. And we didn't do anything other than recite it.
You just want to note it for the resolution, is what you're saying. Yeah, we're not, I don't think he's objecting to it. We just,
No, the existing non-compliance in the resolution.
Okay?
Oh, that's about it. Going to be a gray siding with white trim.
This we would need
Please
to
excuse
mark.
the blue signing, but it's.
This would be
Okay, we don't have that as part of our package, so
Correct.
we're gonna mark that as Exhibit A, and can you just give me a description as to what south side elevation colors?
Colored rendering of the south side elevation, titled SK1.
Thank you.
I did bring copies to hand out if you all like.
Sure.
We don't.
We don't know. Does anybody want them? I don't want them. We need just that one for the record.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a date on that one, Sal?
There is none.
If not, we'll just date it today, March 22.
Well, I have it marked as Exhibit A, SK1 south side rendering color elevation.
Okay.
All right, so basically, this is the same side that we referred to as the predominant side of this house. It is on Mountain View. And you can see the front decks as well as the rear decks. And if you look closely, there's a car underneath that deck, which we're considering to be.
And then, Sal, the last variance is with regard to the height. Just walk the board through
So we
the
are
basis and the reasoning behind proposing that 1.9, almost 2 foot.
We're currently at 3411 from grade to the mid-roof elevation. We went back and forth with this one officer on this. I tried to find it, but I think we could have picked up at least 8 inches in our favor. He's insisting on the median roof height being the top of the eave, and I argued that it should be taken to the bottom of the eave, which is not all the time. Anyway, we're at 3411, understanding that the zoning requirement on this lot, this blocking lot is 33, and that's because it's an undersized lot, right?
Yeah, it's because it's undersized in terms of width, and we get the bonus with compliance with flood rate.
All right, so basically, the only simple explanation we can give as to why we're at this site is we're trying to get a 8 foot, minimum 8 foot garage height on the lower level. Fiasco has a van with a roof rack, we're trying to get the tallest floor possible. The bedroom area, we're trying to get 8'6". I think you can get a decent view over the stone wall on Ocean Avenue from the bedroom area, and to take advantage of the space up on top, we're trying to get a 9 foot ceiling height up in the living area.
And Sal, that height is in keeping with the other properties in the area.
Yes,
It's not on that block.
it's exactly the same height as the other 2 or 3 homes being built on Mountain View. And what's the name of the 4-story townhouses? So it's up 150 Ocean?
Yeah, the newer one, north one.
I think everybody knows that those are about 4.8 stories high, maybe 5. And a tower over this property. I did bring an aerial photograph if you want to pass around, showing everyone the types of buildings that have been going on adjacent to this property. These are the towers. This Fiasco's property is right there, these trees, and everything around it. It's at least to be almost close to.
Here, let me, I don't know.
Well, it's not excessive in height, really. It's only because it's an undersized lot and you need
Right,
a variance to go that height. But that's typical height in the town anyway.
I'm not the best one.
Doesn't have a name or a number.
We'll mark it.
Mark it as what?
Exhibit 2.
Exhibit 2. Aerial view.
That's pretty much it. Maybe.
Questions?
Okay.
Questions
Does
for?
anybody on the board have any further questions?
You don't show the mechanicals on the drawing, you're not allowed to have any mechanicals in the setbacks, you have a plan for where you're going to put the outdoor condensing units and so forth.
We're going to put the condensing units on the rear of the property, which is adjacent to what we're calling that carport. So it's well within our property line. between our house, the new house, and what you were calling the existing garage.
So it'll be on the west side of the building and not in the setback.
That is correct.
Outside the setback.
Yes.
All right, if there's no other questions. Is there anybody in the public that has a question of the testimony that we've received so far? If not, we'll close the public portion. Do you have anything further?
No, we'll come back to the next hearing. I'll contact Dave Hoder and discuss the issue of the cycle and see what we can come up with.
I mean, I suggest that if you agree with whatever Dave comes up with, you don't actually need to come back and waste your time about it.
And then
But if you,
have a resolution.
that's not the resolution. So I would make Candace, what's the next meeting?
It's April 12th.
April 12th. So I would make a motion to direct Monica to have a positive resolution at the next meeting and then carry this application to the April 12th meeting without further notice. It's a joint motion.
Anybody second that?
I'll second.
We have a roll call?
Mr. Cashmore?
Yes.
Vice Chairman DeSteo?
Yes.
Ms. Gorman?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Mr. Lexstein?
Yes.
And Mr. Julio?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman of the board.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah, just for purposes of the record, we're carrying this matter with no further notice to the following hearing date, which was April 12th. Thank you, April 12th, 7:30. Anybody in the audience who wishes to follow the continuation of this particular matter, please come back at that time. Thank you.
Good night.
We're going to see you next week then.
Next week.
I mean, next meeting.
Good to see
We
you.
really do need to get rid of looking.
So Mark, less than 24 hours.
So you have to
Yeah, we need to get rid of it.
Okay, the next application on the agenda is Gareth and Dawn Middleton, 22 Surf Street.
Yeah, planning
Mr. and Mrs. Middleton, if you'd be so kind as to raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth for purposes of this application? Okay, and can you please just state your name and address for the record for me?
Sure, my name is Gareth Middleton. I reside at 22 Surf Street.
And Dawn Middleton, 22 South Street.
Thank you so much, and please let the board understand that I have reviewed the notice. The notice is deemed appropriate, and the board can accept jurisdiction of this matter.
Thank you. If I'm allowed to make a remark before I do that, I have the 10 copies of the setback letter, which was prepared prior to this.
The setback letter was actually placed on the website. I believe I saw it there.
All right.
So I think we're fine with that.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. And just to be sure you all have my plans, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so as we mentioned, we're Dawn and Gareth Middleton. Thank you for hearing the application this evening.
Are you also a professional?
I'm a professional engineer registered in the state of New Jersey.
Okay.
But he's not testifying as an expert.
No, I'm not. My counsel, who largely helped me on the administrative side of this, is on vacation this morning.
Okay.
Mr. Schulberg.
I'm just going to state at any time that you feel uncomfortable and you request counsel that we would adjourn for you. Just want you to know that, okay?
Thank you. So we're very excited about the future of our new home. Just a little bit of background, we purchased this home in 2017 after taking a trip down on Mother's Day and seeing the place and having our agent take us through. The house was in pretty bad shape, long neglected, had somewhat of a history associated with it from what I found out from the neighborhood. There were a number of nearby abandoned properties, and there still are, around the home, but we weren't deterred by that. So we made an offer, and the offer was accepted, and we moved in August of 17. We immediately got to work cleaning and painting and fixing some of the leaks and some of the problems that we found with the home. The home leans to the left considerably. So it is, most people would look at that. Me being an engineer, I knew the home was structurally sound, so we accepted it the way it was and we went forward with it. So We used it as our weekend home for quite some time. But then came to 2020 and we decided to sell our home in Wayne, New Jersey and settle in Seabright full time. We started to get involved in the community, got to know Mr. Wexstein, participated in some community things along the way, so it felt like it belonged here. At the time, I was commuting to New York City. I worked for a large New York City-based construction contractor, Cushman Construction, and then came COVID. So we started fixing things, we got more comfortable with the home, trying to make it more than that weekend house. We made some investments, putting in deck, cleaning out the yard, removing the hidden possums that lived under the old abandoned deck, and cleaned up the graffiti and all the other stuff that was in the home. So we made it our own home. But it became clear, COVID continued into 2021, and it became clear we were just throwing good money at that. This home has outlived its useful life, I think. And it can never be the home that we want or deserve. So we started planning to rebuild. We paid careful attention. I've been in a lot of these meetings. I've scoured the internet and read all the applications. We paid close attention to the surrounding neighborhood. Paid close attention to the riverfront properties, which is literally 50 yards from my front door, and got deemed an area in need of redevelopment. And subsequently got some pretty good variances on their heights and other things. So we think that may happen, and that's good I believe that's good. I supported that effort, so we hope that happens. 26 Beach Street was a long saga about the subdivision. We saw a beautiful home go up there now, and we hope to see another one, so that's positive. We had 2 house lifts on either side of us. Mark Teichman, my neighbor, who's a longtime resident now and an architect and a good friend. And on the other side, another lift for the folks who brought the house from. And that house remains vacant and to this day. There was a new modular home that was built up the street, and countless other borough applications. And so we are here. Our plan is to build our forever home. We are owner occupied. We will live in it. We want to make it our family gathering place. It's the right size for our live, work, and play. As I take you through the plans, you see it's not a home built for large amounts of residence. It's a balance of a small home, but a working home. Dawn and I both predominantly work from home. It's going to be built with sustainable features. We expect to have solar with battery backup, high efficiency HVAC, almost a net zero home is the plan, efficient plumbing and electrical. We also plan to use prefabricated building elements, which I know, from being in the business, will increase our delivery speed and as well be less impactful to the neighborhood, being less noise. No one's going to hear air guns and hammers for weeks on end. We're going to have resilient features to deal with climate change and the regulatory requirements. We're going to have a unique, I believe, coastal sort of contemporary design with lots of light and glass. So just to let you know, the house celebrates its 100th year, according to the records I can find. I spent countless hours reviewing its history of renovations, starts and stops, even some citations about unlawful occupancy and borderline disputes. It has a whole history with it, but we're willing to, we want to be the next, we want to be the next positive, homeowner and developer there. We believe this project is an example of responsible development, and we look forward to helping contribute to the continued revitalization of the downtown district. So please consider approving this application as submitted and help us make the most of what we think is possible. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to your questions.
Okay, unfortunately, you haven't provided anything for the public to view as far as the site plan, elevations, or floor plans. How do we handle that? Is there...
Well,
do you mean in the settings, or do you mean
well, anybody in the public has to have the right to view what you're doing.
I misunderstood.
Everything has been provided online, so
yes.
it's been available for public review for the last 10 days.
So that's okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That was my understanding from council.
The only question I had was with the height that you're asking for. Is that's a roof deck up there, and the only thing coming up is the staircase and the elevator? Is that the way I looked at it?
That's correct.
So the reason for the height is basically unoccupied space.
Yeah, the reason for the height, my architect attempted to put some architectural features to it. The hip roof is the reason for the height. So the median that you see to the roof deck, the top of the roof is 42 feet. The median is the last application.
The median or to the ridge?
The ridge is 42 here. The roof deck is at below that elevation, no higher than 38 feet, 37.8 as you see on the drawing. Now we are base flood elevation of 8 at this location, R3, with a 3-foot freeboard requirement, so our first floor will be at 12 feet. And we are currently showing 9-foot floor heights. All of our equipment will be located tucked inside these roof beams here, and in the garage, of course. I wish I had the problem with the last applicant have. I have 6 variances that are being sought for this, 3 of which are pre-existing. I believe we're a 1/10 of a foot existing. All these lots in this location are skewed to the street. So Mark's house on my left is on my property corner, and my other neighbor's on that property corner. So we have the existing side yard is sort of fixed. We're just simply looking to extend the house to the east.
Well, lots aren't built perpendicular to the street, so there's
Well, the
angles
house is
on.
crooked.
But the houses that they built there, I was down there looking at it, they've maintained equal spacing between them. So even though you're going to the corner in the back, this is completely new construction, right? You're not
I was just gonna
utilizing
say, are you
anything.
using the existing foundation?
We will be using the southern foundation, the westerly foundation.
Oh, you will be using that part of it. Okay, so you're just going to extend the other side.
Correct.
Okay. So that setback was existing.
That's correct. And then if you look at drawing number L1, we have somewhat of a space that's consistent. It shrinks, it drops. The westerly side yard is at 3'5" at one end and
2'2". Well, that's your neighbor's property.
yeah.
Your house goes right to your property.
It does. I mean,
You weren't able to move that off of a little bit with the new construction?
No, that's my question.
That's,
So
he's maintaining that line.
I'm maintaining that line.
Yeah, it looks like you're rebuilding on the exact same footprint that you had
We are.
before.
So it's akin to actually a raise like Mark and the other neighbor did, where they actually lifted within the same footprint, essentially on their line. The eaves of the other homes extend over the property line.
Well, that's what we'd like to see. I'd like to see it moved over a little bit more on the lot, so you're not right on the property line in that back corner.
well, if you went down there, Steve, it actually maintained the same distance from the house next door consistently down the lot. In
Yeah,
front of the
no,
house,
I
it
know,
has
I
a-
understand.
It's just the opposite on the other house. The front yard setback, they have more and none in the back.
Yeah.
So it's,
It's a mishmash on Third Street.
Yeah, it's the same. I know the neighboring property is the same way, but, and you do have some space in between because of your neighbor's property. So even though you're on the lot line, you're not up against your neighbor.
Correct. Because the opposite, it gets telegraphed lot to lot to lot. That the buildings, if you look at the survey, the building is actually crooked. I don't know if these things were on slabs originally, they probably were. And maybe they shifted and it's building been since the 20s. So,
Ladies and gentlemen, public, it's hard to pick up the recording.
anyway.
On A201, where you have these 4 windows, where there's the roof deck, where does it come up to the top right here? What's the height there? Where the top ceiling where the windows are?
37 foot 8 inches.
37.8?
37 is an architect, I think he's definitely an engineer. 37 foot 8 inches. And then there should be a section through this as well.
that appears to be, that's a cathedral ceiling for the great room, isn't it?
Yes, we have a 2-story living area.
That's the reason the glass is so high. It's
Yeah.
not easy to read these plans, especially with my
No,
old eyes.
I've got these here.
The other guys are too big and these are too small.
It's
And I'm a builder.
So that actual 2-story section is what takes it, from my perspective in looking at it, from 2.5 stories to 3. Because at every elevation, it looks like a 3-story home, which is not in character with anything else on the street, nor that I can see anywhere else in the area. The 2.5 story thing isn't just about living space on it. a half story. It's about kind of aesthetics and
Sure.
and look. Whereas this, on each one of your elevations, looks exactly from the exterior as if it's a total 3-story home, which I don't see anywhere else on the street.
Total 3 well, yes, from that perspective, I would say you're right. There are 2 homes on New Street.
I don't think New Street has something to do with it. In that sense, in that it is completely the envelope of the floor below is a floor above. Whereas our requirement is 30, is a third. You know, a half, we've certainly approved a half. Since I've only been on the board for a short period of time, we have approved 50%. But to me, this looks like 100%, which I think there's a reason for doing this, and I think this will look quite out of character on the street. If you move that window wall back in alignment with the living space on that, then I think you've solved that problem, and you can actually have a deck on there and still get the views you want to get. But I certainly think that between the height and the fact that it looks like a 3-story thing, that gives me a major concern.
Okay. Noted. Yeah, I see where you're coming from now. I mean, the only portion of the home that's actually visible is the front of this house at the end of the day. But it would be.
Which looks 3 stories.
Which would look 3 stories.
There's actually, when I was on there today, I think there's one home that's 2.5. That's a new house, it's a new build, it's 2.5. Everything else is 2 stories, basically.
The homes that are on New are 2.5. There are 2 blue homes that are on New Street.
Yeah, they're on the other side, yes. But, I mean, still to me, I don't see any 3-story homes in the neighborhood.
Okay. So I must admit, I'm not, I have to speak with my architect. I'm not following 2.5 versus 3, I guess that's a.
It's a requirement.
I will say it's not being pulled out for a variance for a 3rd story. It's being pulled out for a height variance. So you may want to just clarify with your architect and your attorney that a 3-story variance is not required. Just you might want testimony on that from your architect.
That it is.
That this is not a 3-story house. It's not being called out by the zoning officer as a 3-story variance.
Mm-hmm.
It's not saying it's only for a height. So you may want to talk to your architect and your attorney and clarify, or have your architect come in and give testimony as to the height versus the story.
Okay.
And again, as Dave was saying, the brick is small. Is it 37 foot 8 inches to the ceiling of your top floor? And is that the 42 feet to the
Top of the ridge.
top of the ridge? Am I reading that correctly?
Correct. 42. If you look at sheet number A301,
Yeah, that's what I'm on, A301, so.
you have it right. 42 feet to the ridge, right?
But our ordinance calculates the height of the home to the mean height between the plate and the ridge.
Right, so they don't have.
So they don't have that.
Here. So the previous application was 44 feet to the mean, that is the mean height of the roof, but his ridge was actually 58 feet, because they had a very high roof line on that. They're in a different environment, but I'm just saying, you're comparing to the multi-story buildings next door, so it's not out of place. That's why, to be honest with you, I didn't bring it up. But the raising of the houses, what is it from grade to your lowest structural member? What is the height?
A big part.
From grade to the lowest structural member, what is the height of the
12 feet.
12 feet.
It will be 12 through the FEMA requirement.
And that's the FEMA requirement, 12 feet, that puts you
8 plus 3. Yeah. Might be
plus 3, 11.
Sorry, 11 feet. Beg your pardon. Yes, 11 foot.
Right, but is it drawn at 11 or is it drawn at 12?
No, it's drawn at 11. It should be, let's see, we got 11. Yeah, it's got 11 right here. It's also on A301, on section
Yeah, I'm
G.
looking at the sections of A301. Okay, so that's 11, you couldn't put a couple foot there then. The difference between a 2.5 story and a 3 story, everything would be the same height, is that your top floor would be a percentage of the floor below.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that was the approach here, but I can't get around the comment we made before about the visual.
Well, I was just, let me just say, like, the way you have the description of the work, it's essentially a demolition of 2-story and reconstruction of a new 3-story. However, whoever analyzed the plans, although it's not called that, it's called a 3-story house. The zoning officer did not appear to call out a 3-story variance. So I'm not quite sure if the calculation of the architect was correct for 2.5 stories or not. So that's really something you're going to have to clarify.
Sure, okay.
And that's a calculation.
And that's a calculation, and you should bring in somebody to testify as to that.
Okay.
If you look at the plan though, what's categorized as the 3rd story shows it to be just an open loft deck. Or is that under a roof line?
It's under
a roof line.
That's interior.
Okay, that's what's confusing.
Yeah, looking down onto the second floor.
So the last diagram, the roof plan is where the deck is.
If you look at A301, it's fairly clear what that is.
Where's 301?
It's after.
Yeah, right here. So the zoning officer may be calculating because if you look at 301 on the left-hand side, that 3rd floor, it looks like a percentage of the 2nd floor. So that open space may negate the 3rd story appearance. That may be considered a half story. So that's why I'm saying it's not clear on the plan. So that's not our determination. And the zoning officer did not call it out as a 3-story variance. So,
which I don't quite understand
because we don't have testimony on it. So if we had testimony, it'd be better.
Based on this view, it's certainly not 30%.
No, I
Once
didn't see
again,
this page.
testimony would be helpful without making a judgment on that, so yeah.
But if they redesign it or it calculates out as 30%, I don't believe that our ordinance requires it to be in the center, or if it's to the left or to the front or to the rear or to one side.
But there's also decking up there too, so that's what I'm saying, I'm not quite sure how the calculation occurred, whether or not it's a true 3-story, so that's why we need some testimony.
Okay. But I think that's a question. Ms. Frank, I think your concern was that the appearance of the building from the outside was 3-story. So if all of that 30% is to the front of the house, then that would make it appear as though it's a 3-story, even though it is a 2.5 story.
Well, the envelope of the building is 3 stories. Without question. Based on the drawings that have been presented, it is 3 stories. Now, the interior of the 3rd floor may only be 50% of the volume of the 2nd floor, but it's interior. It's not exterior.
I know exactly what you're saying, but I'm going to ask you to not to make a net opinion on that until we have testimony on it. I see exactly what you're saying with regard to the drawings, but for purposes of providing a fair hearing for the applicant, let's have him bring testimony in, and you can then ask questions of the witness. So we get some really, really good testimony with regard to how this is calculated and what it looks like.
Steve, look at 202.
Is that before?
I don't know.
The floor area is shown on A101, and it's 565 square feet on the
No,
wall.
202.
202, okay, 202.
That one gives a better vision of the heights. You found it?
Right, and your roof deck is, what is your roof deck above grade?
Again, it's 37 foot 8 inches.
Right, that's what I thought.
Well, this clearly looks like a 3-story building. Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, it designates 3-story.
I tried. I know what it looks like. Maybe if it looks like a duck, it is a duck. I don't know, but let's get some testimony to determine if it quacks.
Well, it's hard to understand. The plans are so small.
I know.
Attorney's expert opinion.
Well, what do you want to do at this point? Are we going to?
I think it would be in the applicant's best interest if you adjourn, have an opportunity to speak to your architect and your attorney and come back at a later date so you can provide the appropriate testimony to answer the board's questions.
Sure, about the 3-story.
Yeah, and be prepared to answer, any subsequent questions that may result.
Could we please hear from the public, though, since they're here?
Yeah.
Sure, maybe further.
That might be incorporated into somebody.
Yeah, definitely.
They're right, they have full
Okay,
site
then,
plans and then something for the public to look at also.
Okay, then we'll close this part of the portion and we'll open it to the public. Is there anybody in the public who would like to make a comment? Can you please stand, state your name and address?
My name is David Mayer. I'm sorry. I have to apologize. I have a hearing problem, so my wife was telling me the pertinent things.
Mr. Mayor, can you just spell your last name for me?
M-A-Y-E-R.
And your address, please.
24 Surf Street.
Thank you, sir.
My house is to the west of this property. I wanted to address a few items. Number one is the Middletons plan on retaining the existing foundation wall on the west side of the property. I don't have a problem with that. That's the way it's been. It's grandfathered in. Neither do I have a problem with them with the front setback because pretty much everybody else on the block is this front setback. They're just complying with everything else on the block. The only thing I actually have an issue with is what you were just speaking about, and that is that it's a 3-story structure, and the south side of the house, the loft and the sunset deck, really doesn't comply with what the rest of the houses in the area are. I am actually, I have plans in my building here. We finally got into our house after Superstorm Sandy and realized it doesn't pay to finish the interior, so we have already elevated the structure. So on top of that structure, we're going to build a new 2.5-story house, for which we already have the plans. We just are waiting for an engineer's opinion. So I don't have a problem with anything except for that extending the south side of the house, which would block whatever view I might have had of the ocean, and would also make it a 3-story structure. And I was specifically told that these need to be 2.5-story structures.
Is the front of your house further forward at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, the front of my house is in the pictures. The existing, my setback is, you got it on your setback, the page right there. I think I'm 10 foot from the curb, 5 foot and change from the property line. Was that it?
How about this one?
Yes.
So Ms. Gorman is holding up the picture of the packet.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's okay.
That was the existing footprint of the house. When we lifted the house, we did not expand the footprint. The footprint is identical to the previous footprint.
It just isn't a setback, it isn't.
No. Good control, yeah. Okay, so in the setback comparison, my setback from the curb is 10.5 feet and 4.375 from the property line, which I'm pretty sure is what they have on their plans. I don't have a problem with it. It's conforming with everybody else. Everybody else is 9, 10.5, 11 from the curb.
So your concerns are the extension on the south side and whether or not this is a 3-story structure?
I'm sorry.
Extension on the south side, I believe you said, is your concern, and whether or not this is a 3-story structure. Those are your concerns.
You're concerned about the fact that it's a 3-story structure and the south side?
He said extension on the south side.
Extension on the south side.
Well, the south side he's not changing the setback, but what he is doing is making a full floor on the third floor.
Okay, so,
And that doesn't conform, like I said, to anybody else in the area. I've looked at a lot of the houses, and the plans I have also have that top floor as a half floor.
So if Mr. Middleton has the opportunity to bring in his architect, and we have further testimony on it, some of your questions may or may not be answered, and then you would have an opportunity to question the architect as to whether or not this is considered a third floor, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not really,
Your name?
Reese Mayer.
Reese, R-E-E-S.
Lor.
tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I forgot to swear you in too. Do you tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Already did.
I know, I didn't do this. All right, thank you.
So I don't know if it was clear, but that, those windows, on that side would actually look at our.
Well, it's not the window, that's the sunset deck.
The sunset deck would actually be right next to our half floor, where we would have a deck, and it would also block us.
Well, the loft area would be blocking the view.
Block
I don't
the
have a problem
view
with
that
it.
we have of the ocean.
I don't have a problem
Okay,
with
so
that.
let me just say that that's more of an aesthetic issue, and you're not entitled to maintain as long as they don't require variances or
Right.
they're not doing anything inappropriate. So
Right.
let's get the architect back, let's get some testimony on the record, and let's see what we can do, okay?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one question before. Do you know the ridge height of your proposed new home?
When you say the ridge height, you mean the roof or
The top of the roof.
the top of the roof? I believe we're similar.
I didn't understand.
The ridge height, we have 39 feet, 8 and 5/16 inches.
Is that the mean height of the roof or? is
That's
that
the height of the absolute height of the roof.
Yeah, so,
It's 39 foot.
39 foot 8, 9 inches.
Mr. Ketchum, I understand you want for purposes of comparison, but every case has to stand on its own merit, so it's not really germane to.
No, I understand. I just wanted to know, and I didn't know when the heights of the other roofs on the building on the street would be important.
Well, because they all have differing height lines, we don't know how they're measured, so that's why we have to evaluate this with regard to streetscape and what the variance request is. So let's just adjourn.
All right, so
Get an architect.
can I also make a suggestion, Candace? Would you be able to reach out to the zoning officer and ask him about that third story issue and bring it to his attention, and then we can have a little further clarification from his perspective what the story is.
And then you should be here for when we.
Did you submit a full set of plans?
Well, no, yeah, I'm here.
Did you submit a full set of plans, full-size set of plans to Borough Hall, or just these little prints?
This was submitted electronically, I believe.
Okay.
And, I kind of asked about that in the beginning, and what size do we need? If I work for an engineering company, I can get you any size you want.
Well, Candace, I thought they had a whole application.
E-size, we can do it all.
No, we didn't get any big plans.
Yes, we need big plans.
I thought you were supposed to have 20 copies.
Yeah.
Talk to Candace, so Candace can get you everything.
I'll talk to them.
Candace, you reach out to the zoning officer?
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the public that has a comment or a question? And we'll close the public portion. Then what you suggesting, maybe we'll adjourn this then?
I think we're going to need you to give him an opportunity to have some more testimony.
Candace, what's going on April 12th, other than, I know we just.
Well, on April 12th, I was hoping to put a new application, but they haven't gotten it to me. So I can.
So it's open right now?
Well,
we
I
just
have
carried
one,
over.
and then we would have two carried.
Right, well, hopefully, go ahead, Mark, I'm
I
sorry.
should say, do you think April 12th would be appropriate for you, or do you need additional time to speak to your attorney and your architect to see if they're available?
Well, I can't tell you that tonight.
Well, we have to give you a date tonight
Yeah.
so that we can
So I
adjourn
heard
with no
if
further
April
notice.
12th is the earliest available.
Yes.
Then I will take that.
That's
I'll
fine.
take April 12th.
Okay.
Yeah, to be honest, it should take like 10 seconds, hopefully.
Yeah, okay, but don't we also, doesn't he have to produce the 12 full-size plans 10 days before?
Can you get, well, the plans are on the internet, so they're fine for purposes of public notice, but if you can get us 10 full-size plans, or rather, was it 23?
It sounds like it's about you being able to unfold them in front of you for these meetings, and I'm happy to do that.
And get the calculations correct, so, that's helpful.
Well, we're able to review it at home, we get a copy,
Yeah.
so we can lay it out and review it, and then your testimony usually
Would
is.
like those plans.
As soon
As soon as possible.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, so this matter is going to be adjourned to April 12th of 2022 at 7:30 with no further notice. So anybody who's here for this application, please feel free to come back at that time. If you have any problems with regard to obtaining either your architect or your attorney, please call Candace, because what we can do is adjourn you at that meeting to a further date to give you an opportunity to get your stuff together. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to review the ordinance.
And that internet store, sort of visions and all kinds of visions that I made and all that. It's all excited people.
All right, the ordinance of the Borough of Seabright amending Chapter 130 Land Use, Article 6, no, 4? No, what's, I can't remember. It's a design standard, Section 13051, design standards for specific use, subsection, it's a bulkhead maintenance.
But basically, Dave, what they did was, we adopted the bulkhead ordinance last year.
Yeah.
For people to repair the bulkheads. And what council decided, because they got a lot of complaints, that there wasn't enough time for people to do the work that they needed to do with the time limitations that were set up within the original ordinance. So my understanding is all that they're doing with the new ordinance is just increasing those times, giving people more opportunity to get the work done. I think that's all they're doing.
And we don't know that time because none of the people are here.
It's in the, we have the ordinance, don't we?
Yeah, yeah,
It's,
6 months to notification of corrective action.
Yeah, we actually discussed that, I remember discussing that.
yeah, for whatever reason, the ordinance isn't very good with the date or the times that are changing, but I think it is the no later than 90 days in D. And then in D, I think it was 6 months and 1 year. I think the time frames were a lot smaller in what we originally did. And also in F, I think they added 60 days. I wish they had underlined the things.
Yeah, they didn't underline.
Which is weird because they cross out the construction of this.
They did on top,
Yeah,
and nowhere
very
else.
bizarre.
Yeah.
But I believe those are the changes.
Okay.
So I don't have a problem with it. It makes sense.
Has anyone started anything? We don't know.
I think there are people who have probably started, they've been cited.
Right.
And then that freaked people out.
Right.
And my concern is always with these type of things, people who haven't done it all these years, I wonder if they'll like to do it.
Right, because I mean, regardless of this, they're blown through their timing. Whatever
Yeah.
this new one is, they've already blown through that new timing too.
But I guess they've asked for more time, hopefully, and they're not letting them off the hook, hopefully, and they'll continue to do it because it needs to be done. But I have no problem with extra time.
Okay, so what, we have to prepare a letter then? Does anybody have any objections to what's proposed on the?
It's conformance with the master, it's definitely conformance with the master plan.
So I guess we have to write a letter saying that we.
So I'll make a motion to affirmatively approve it and send it out to council.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
That's
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Frank did also.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, we're all sitting here.